Ramble Wizard. Paladins. I love paladins. There's something about being a holy warrior that holds themselves to a noble standard. It's cool, and making people explode after you hit them with a sword is also pretty cool too. I enjoyed playing a paladin, and I love DMing for a paladin. A warrior who has to stick to an oath just has such good story potential, and I love diving into that. Up until 5e, paladins had to swear an oath to a god, usually a god of lawful good nature, back when alignment was a thing. They had to swear an oath to that god, and that's how they got their powers, right? As long as they maintained those tenets, they would be able to go on an adventure with their paladin powers. But in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, 2 sentences of text in the 2014 player handbook made paladins across many tables so dumb. The text reads as follows. Different paladins focus on various aspects of the cause of righteousness, but all are bound by the oaths that grant them power to do their sacred work. Although many paladins are devoted to gods of good, a paladin's power comes as much from a commitment to justice itself as it does from a god. To put that simply, or rather, to put this how most people on the internet interpret that, a paladin doesn't need to get powers from a god. They can get powers from their commitment to the oath they made and their belief in that oath. So, in official D&D canon, a normal, non-magical human can make a promise to no one in particular, maybe just to themselves, and they are so committed to their oath that they get their power from somewhere. It's not clear at all how paladins get that power, it just kind of happens. Now you can say the power comes from, the dead gods or the universe, but for the most part, people interpret this as people believe in themselves so much that they grant themselves power, which is a bit odd for a non-magical human to just get powers all of a sudden just because they believe in themselves really hard. Now I don't love this explanation. I think it has a lot of issues, but here's the thing, this can work if you don't think about it. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way, I mean that genuinely. If you don't think about this, it can work. Like, if you're telling a story where the oath of a paladin really doesn't matter, you shouldn't need to worry about this at all. But unless you're going for that angle, if you want to have a world that is cohesive and makes sense, this is pretty bad writing and doesn't really lead to good world building. And most of the D&D community agrees with me. I made this poll, how should paladins get their powers? And as you can see, most people, oh no, I'm in the minority on this one, oh no, I'm kicking the hornet's nest. Ugh. You know when people say like, I got a hot D&D take and it's not actually hot at all? Oh no, I'm doing a hot take. All right, okay, stick to your guns, Bone Wizard, stick to your guns. All right, you got this. Hopefully this video won't explode in your face.
Did someone say explode?
Yes.
Well, if you want some explosions and things adjacently cool to explosions, you gotta check out Heliana and Ryoko's Guide to Mythozoology. These 2 books are jam-packed full of awesome stuff. Like the Calamity Barbarian. It channels natural disasters through their anger and can explode like a volcano. Now I know exactly what you're thinking right now. Can I be a dog with a sword? You sure can. The Circle of the Blade Druid lets you wild shape into a dog that can use a sword. The subclass we have all been waiting for. Look at that good boy! It's also got a brand new class called the Maker, a non-magical class that lets you animate and utilize the world around you. These books also give you kaijus to fight in giant battles, and even ways to summon these titanic monsters. They might try to help you, or they might try and eat you, but you can defend yourself from these giant monsters by piloting a mech to punch them right in the face. Bone Wizard is a sucker for giant robots. Aren't you, Bone Wizard?
I do like mechs.
He's a total simp! Now I know what you're thinking. This book still does not have enough dog in it. Well, good thing they got a whole playable dog species. Look at that cute little warlock. I would go to prison for this dog! These books got 16 adventures, over 26 subclasses, 100 craftable magic items, 40 new spells, 10 familiars, 40 feats, 16 new species but only one that matters to me, and so much more. And if you back the Kickstarter at any physical tier before March 22nd, you'll get these blue crystal myth dice completely for free. If you want to get your hands on these 2 amazing books, click on the link in the description and check out the Kickstarter. Thank you to Heliana and Ryoko's Guide to Mythozoology for sponsoring this video!
Okay, first of all, for brevity's sake, I'm just going to refer to a paladin getting their powers from their commitment to their oath and not a god as a secular paladin. Before I go into why I think this is bad writing, let me just say I think there is one very good upside to all of this. A godless paladin does give people an option for those wanting to avoid the topic of religion. You know, the idea of committing to a god and just the topic of anything religious in general can make people feel a type of way. So wanting to avoid that is understandable. I get that, and I think that's very reasonable. I think options to not have your player character be a Bible-thumping crusader type is a good thing. However, the alternative to that we have been given is just a mess, and it makes for really sketchy world building. This video is probably going to make some people angry, so big, bold, massive disclaimer here. Just because I am talking about why I think secular paladin doesn't work, this is not me saying we have to have a paladin that worships a god and that is a crusader type and then has to get their powers from a god. That's not what I am saying at all. All I'm saying is the alternative we have been given isn't a very good one. I do think we should have paladins that avoid the topic of religion, and I will be giving suggestions on how to do that later in this video. So to make this abundantly clear to the people half listening while folding their laundry, first of all, thank you for watching my video. I hope your laundry gets folded quickly. And second, I am okay with a godless paladin. I just don't like the paladin that was presented in 5e. Okay? Alright, if we're talking paladins, there's one thing we have to talk about. In the world contained in this one YouTube video, there is one rule we just have to accept. All vegetables are purple. It is paramount that you accept this fact. It doesn't matter if you paint them, they will instantly turn back to being purple. It doesn't matter if you wish for them to be a different color. That wish will fail and the vegetables will stay purple. There is no earthly or heavenly force that can make a vegetable not purple. Every vegetable in the world of this YouTube video is purple. It has to be purple. All right? Okay, so why is the secular paladin idea not great writing? Well, if you think about it for like 20 seconds, the whole idea just falls apart. Like really, just think about it. If power comes from a person's belief and commitment to a promise, then why aren't there paladins everywhere? Seriously, what's stopping a random farmer from becoming a paladin? If demons break out and attack a town, should a bunch of people just become paladins too? If the barrier to entry to become a paladin is their level of commitment and their willpower, why wouldn't anyone about to bite the dust become a paladin? If you know you are about to face annihilation, I feel like you would be very committed to not have that happen to you, make any oath, and just become a paladin on the spot. Like, what's the reason for that not being a thing? You're gonna tell me they're just not committed enough to not get their head chopped off? I don't buy that. And imagine this. This is the world of the secular paladin, right? A small boy's village is beset upon by demons. He sees his family getting attacked, his town razed to the ground, and he wishes and prays and believes and makes every promise he can to hopefully gain power to become a paladin in that moment so he can strike down these demons to protect everything he loves. But it just doesn't happen. Years later, this boy sees a paladin walking across the road. He goes up to this paladin and he says, "Sir Knight, my village was beset upon by demons, and I tried to swear an oath. I was so committed to protect people, to hold up all that is good and just, but my paladin powers never came. Why? Why didn't the paladin powers come to me so I could save my family?" And the paladin just turns to him and says, "Because you didn't believe in yourself enough." That's f***ing awful. You could say, hey, that's just how it is. But dude, your fantasy world is miserable. That is so damn depressing. That sucks. Your family was a demon's lunch because you just weren't feeling it enough that day. At least if a god didn't answer your prayers, you could blame the god. But if your power just comes from your willpower, then I guess you just have to blame yourself that your family got chopped up into pieces. I guess you just didn't love them enough, even though a paladin should be trying to save people regardless of their emotional attachment. With the secular paladin idea, there should be paladins just everywhere. In official D&D lore, creatures with character levels are rare. Like a fighter isn't just an everyday soldier. They're like the top 1% of soldiers in the world. And the player handbook says paladins are even more rare than fighters. But becoming a paladin doesn't seem that hard if all you need is commitment. You can make a promise, again, to no one in particular, and you go off and cure the common cold with your lay on hands. The counter argument as to why not everyone is a paladin is because the secular paladin just believes in themselves so much, and they are so much more committed and have so much more willpower than the average person. I hate that idea. I genuinely hate it. The reason it makes me mad is it's not the fact that you are asking me that only a few amount of people are able to commit to something that hard. It's that you're asking me to think the majority of people on the planet are not able to commit that hard, which I'm sorry, just isn't true. Some real world examples of super committed people: doctors. Doctors are super committed. They went to school, paid tons of money to go into that university. They did their residencies. They took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. It doesn't matter if the person walking through their hospital door is gay, straight, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter if that person stole all of their belongings and sold them on the black market. That doctor took an oath and they will heal that person. That is such a strong commitment. Are you kidding me? What about Doctors Without Borders? People who go into war zones to give people medical treatment. You know who else has a ton of commitment and willpower? People struggling with addiction and have been sober for years. It takes so much to go day by day and just not lose your coin, dude. To those who don't understand how strong addiction is, let me put this in perspective for you. Imagine you have an itch on the tip of your nose and you really want to scratch it. It is so itchy. It's just there. And if you scratched it, you would feel a lot better. But you know, if you scratch your nose to get rid of that itch, it could probably ruin your life and ruin the lives of everyone around you. Now imagine that itch is there for the rest of your life and you can't scratch it. That's what addiction is like. If you're gonna tell me these people don't have commitment or don't have willpower, you're insane. To a lesser extent of commitment, why not people in happy and healthy marriages? That's an oath. People are committed to each other. Why aren't they able to become paladins? I don't think that's as strong of an example, but that's still a sign of commitment. Between doctors, recovering addicts, and people in marriages, those are all people that can exist in a D&D world. All these people are super committed, and that's a pretty large group of people. Oh, I just thought of another one. Olympians. Olympians are super committed. I feel like they should have access to be a paladin, especially an Oath of Glory paladin. This is a huge amount of people, probably more than the average amount of paladins in any given D&D world. To say they are not committed enough to become a paladin is just downright crazy to me. The world has tons of people who are super committed. I'm not gonna say they're the majority of people, but I'm not gonna say they're few and far between. And with the logic of a secular paladin, the worst possible people could become paladins. Anyone in a cult could very easily become a paladin. People who give all their savings away, people who sell their home and give the money to the cult leader, move away from their families, cut off contact just to please their cult leader. That's commitment. That's a lot of commitment. That's a lot of willpower to do that. I don't agree and think people should do that. I don't think these people should be paladins. But if the bar to entry is level of commitment, why would these people not be able to get into it, right? Remember all those people who donated everything they owned because they thought the rapture was going to happen? If we are operating under the logic of secular paladin, these people should make it in. I don't think they really fit the paladin vibe. I don't agree with it, but this is the logic of a commitment-based paladin. To make this abundantly clear, I think what happened to these people is awful. They were misled and their lives got ruined. However, all I am saying is these people are committed to something. They are not committed to something good, but they are committed. And remember, you don't need to be committed to the fight for good and justice. You can be a paladin that is just committed to anything, like the Oath of Conquest. That is just the Tyranny Paladin. They're evil. Oath of Glory is a paladin that is all about bringing glorious deeds to yourself and being really buff and swollen and in good shape. You could very easily argue that that is not a paladin who's fighting for good, but rather is a self-serving paladin and a selfish paladin. I don't think that is necessarily how it has to be run, but that could very easily be twisted to support that. Another problem with the secular paladin idea is who is holding you accountable to follow your oaths? Yourself? If you break your oath, do you lose faith in yourself and then lose your paladin powers? Because if you're holding yourself accountable, I could just as easily see a secular paladin being in denial and keeping their powers. Have you ever been in an argument with someone where they definitely did something wrong and everyone thinks they did something wrong, but they just stand their ground like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. No, I'm right. And they make a bunch of excuses and genuinely believe they are in the right. What is stopping a paladin from being that guy? What is to stop a paladin from just changing their oath fully day to day? Couldn't a paladin in the heat of anger just change their oath to an oath of vengeance? What if they grow a hatred for extraplanar beings so they become an oath of the Watcher for a day? What if they grow an appreciation of the Fae the next day and take an oath of the Ancients? Now obviously that doesn't seem like commitment at all, but if you are the only one holding yourself accountable to these oaths, you get to decide what commitment is. The biggest question about the secular paladin is, where do their powers come from? In D&D, where the classes get their powers from is really vague, and that's by design. A design choice I don't agree with, but still, that's how it is. But in general, we do have ideas of where classes get their powers from, right? Like a wizard studies magic for years and years to be able to harness the arcane words and magic. Clerics get their powers from a god. A warlock makes a deal with an outer being to get their powers. Sorcerers are born with their powers. Druids get it from nature. It's really vague. I'm not really all too sure on that one. Please leave a comment down below if you have a good idea of what a druid should get their powers from, because what does it mean when you get your power from nature? Like what do you mean you get it from nature? Like how? That you're leaving so much open-ended here. This is like Charlie talking about his favorite hobby.
What's your favorite hobby?
Magnets.
Okay, what, like making magnets, collecting magnets?
Playing with magnets?
Just magnets. I'm gonna put snowboarding.
But a paladin gets their power from basically believing in themselves. That is some Saturday morning cartoon nonsense. And you can like the power of friendship, that's totally fine, I'm okay with that. But if you come to my game with a paladin powered by the power of friendship and expect me to treat you like Game of Thrones, I'm gonna treat you like Care Bears because you are throwing some Care Bear coded stuff at me. The power of a paladin has to come from somewhere. A normal, regular, non-magical human with no magic powers can have magic powers because he promised to do something. That's extremely sorcerer coded, but you know what, I'm not giving it the benefit of the doubt. This is how I've seen people explain where the powers come for a secular paladin. When you take a paladin oath, the oath itself gives you power. That oath you spoke out into the world is the one holding you accountable to follow the tenets of the oath. The very nature of the idea you strive to embody is what made this average human into a holy paladin. So let's dissect that. You make an idea, and that idea gains some form of sentience, at least enough to give you powers and hold you accountable. So an invisible entity with no physical presence gives you aid or power if you follow a moral code. Hey guys, that's just a god. That's just what a god is, which is extremely funny to me because in your attempts to avoid gods, you have just reinvented gods. It's downright poetic. I've seen people say like, oh, it's the universe giving you power, or it's like this certain realm is giving you powers. If something is sentient enough to give you powers and know you are doing right or wrong, that's just God again. You can reflavor it however you want, devil, demon, elemental being. If you have to live by a moral code to get powers, that's just what God is. Now I know what a bunch of you are going to say. It's a fantasy world with dragons that breathe fire and old men in funny hats that can summon demons. You can't stretch your imagination enough to allow a guy who believes in himself so much he gets his powers. You know what, that's fair. Before I respond to that, I just need to bring up something. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that throughout this video, there have been multiple vegetables, a lot of which are not purple. A lot of you might be asking, hey, why are there vegetables that are not purple? You said all vegetables have to be purple in this video. What's the deal? Well, here's my response to that. It's a fantasy world with dragons that breathe fire and old men in funny hats that can summon demons. You can't stretch your imagination enough to believe that some vegetables just aren't purple. Isn't that such a dismissive answer? Does that answer any of your questions as to why some vegetables are not purple? Doesn't it seem like I just kind of gave up and just telling you to figure it out on your own? Doesn't that make me seem like a bad storyteller? If you answer any question about a fantasy world with this, it's not an answer. You're just dismissing it and telling people to just accept it. Here's the thing, people being powered by willpower can be done well in media. You can make good stories with that. Look at Gurren Lagann or Green Lantern. Both of those stories have people powered by willpower. Remember how I said, hey, why isn't everyone a paladin if all it takes is commitment? Well, everyone in those stories does have this power of will. The only way to use that power of will in a magical way is if you have a specific device that lets you utilize that that willpower. In the universe of Green Lantern, the Lantern Rings are some of the most powerful weapons in the universe. The rings themselves choose who becomes a Lantern. In neither of these stories do people just decide they have superpowers that day. There are instances in both of these stories where a user can use their willpower without a device, but those are very special moments. But if every person in that story could just do that, the story wouldn't happen. The plot requires that to be a rare thing. And if you want a paladin like that, like, oh, I am a secular paladin and that's a rare thing, I think that's fine. You're an anomaly. Sure, be an anomaly. Be the special boy. You're a D&D character. You're allowed to be the special boy. The biggest reason I have seen people lean toward the secular paladin is that it makes it different from the cleric. The cleric being someone who gets their powers from a god, and generally, the paladin did get their powers from a god, but they want something different. And honestly, I fully agree with that. These two classes should be distinct, because at surface level, they are very similar. These vibes are nearly identical. If you look at a war cleric and you look at a paladin, mechanically, yeah, they're different, but like, if we're talking in terms of like role-playing and story, what's the difference here, man? I think the writers of D&D 5th edition didn't really do a good enough job to differentiate these classes. I think it's way too vague, and people wanting to make them distinct is normal. I also want them to be distinct. Here's how I made the distinction between paladin, cleric, and also warlock, because they're kind of folded in this mess too. A paladin swears an oath to a higher being and gets powers. Their powers are on lease. The god says, you've made an oath. All right, I think you're good enough to get these powers. Here you go. You keep your oath, you keep your powers. You break your oath, you lose your powers. How that's different from cleric is a cleric did not choose to be a cleric. Think of a paladin as a crusader, and think of a cleric not as a priest, but Moses. They are a prophet. They are the chosen one. Clerics are what paladins strive to be. That cleric doesn't even need to worship that god. They don't necessarily have to be faithful. They are just chosen by God to carry out their will. It probably certainly helps to be faithful. It certainly would make a god more likely to choose that person, but a god just chooses them because, hey, that guy can get the things I need to get done. And so that's why they choose them. Whereas a cleric just has powers thrown at them, a paladin is like filing a job application. And how does this differentiate from warlock? Now, I see warlock a bit differently. I don't think most people would do this. It's not the hill I'm gonna die on, but this is how I do it. Warlocks buy their powers. They trade a body part, their soul, their firstborn child, a loved one, or something they hold dear to some higher being in exchange for warlock powers. It's a one-time deal, one and done. Once you have those warlock powers, it's theirs. You can't take it back. And you could do this one of two ways. Maybe the warlock powers grow as you level up, so you never have to deal with that patron. Or if you want your warlock's patron to be more involved in the story, maybe those warlock powers only grow to a point. So the patron can go up to this warlock and say, oh, you want more magic powers? You want 3rd level spell slots? Okay, what can you do for me? What can you offer me for these powers? I see a village full of people I don't like that need some, exterminating. Why don't you take care of them and then we'll talk about giving you some powers? So warlocks buy and own their powers, paladins have their powers on lease, and clerics are Moses. One thing that always struck me as strange is people think a paladin being tied to a god is restrictive, which is fascinating to me. You and your DM can add whatever god you want. The gods are super varied. When people think paladin, they think Boy Scout who stands for good and justice. That's not the case anymore. Conquest paladins have proven that. You can be an evil paladin, you can be a neutral paladin, you can be anywhere on the alignment chart. So it stands to reason you can pick any god. And there are a bunch of gods that fit a bunch of different ideologies. You do not need to swear an oath to a Boy Scout god. If we're using Forgotten Realms lore, you could worship Cyric, the god of lies. Just be a paladin all about lying and slandering people and bringing death and destruction wherever you go. Is that too evil for you? Okay, what about Ogma, the god of knowledge? Ogma balls! You could be a paladin all about collecting knowledge and bringing it to your order so you can maintain and learn from the world. Does that sound too much like wizard? We have knowledge clerics, so I don't understand why we can't have knowledge paladins. And second, think of it this way. If a wizard is a scalpel, a paladin is a hammer. Sometimes you just need a hammer. Don't want to use the Forgotten Realms gods? Awesome. Use some from real life mythology. That's what I do, and I think that's awesome. What about Hephaestus, the Greek god of the forge? You could have a paladin that goes out to seek artifacts lost to time, and then you can learn of their make and design so that your order, or maybe even your god, can make weapons of even greater design, armors of even grander scale. Is that not chill enough for you? Why not a paladin to Dionysus, the Greek god of wine? Be a paladin all about partying and getting drunk and just having a good time. Maybe you swear an oath to defend the vineyards that make the wine. Maybe you want to go out into the world and find wine cellars lost to time so that you may bring it to your friends and just have a raucous party with everyone in town. Why not just get really specific with it? Why not Sobek, the Egyptian god of crocodiles? That fits pretty well with lizard folk. You could be a lizard folk paladin and just worship your crocodile god. He will defend you and everyone in the Nile. Are none of those to your liking? Then why not make one up? You can make up whatever god you want, and I can tell you the exact amount of gods in your D&D campaign right now. The exact amount of gods are whatever the DM and the players need to tell a good story. That is the exact amount of gods you need. You can add in as many as you want. I did. I made a god of Grung called Blippu-Blip, the golden god and one-touch deathbringer. He is a god of Grung, poison, and vengeance. He is spiteful, he is ruthless, he threatened to poison all the rains unless he was granted divinity. He is a jerk, and I love him. And even he has paladins. If there's a type of god you want to add to your game, just ask your DM. They are your friend or a friend of a friend. They want to work with you to make a cool story. And who says you have to swear an oath to a god? Why not swear an oath to a band of warriors? Why not swear an oath to a nation that you promise to defend against the demons and all the terrible things that are attacking it? Why not swear an oath to a castle? He-Man did it! You could swear an oath to a dragon, a lich, or a beholder. Those sound like warlock things, but hey, if a warlock can make a pact with a demon and an angel, why not let a paladin swear an oath to a dragon? And come on, swearing an oath to a dragon is pretty rad. You can't tell me that's not pretty cool, dude. Come on, dragon paladin would kinda go pretty hard. If you got this far into the video and still don't agree with me about the secular paladin and you still think it's really cool, hey man, more power to you. I'm not gonna try and take that away from you. If you wanna have a paladin that avoids gods, go for it. It's your game, do whatever you want. But let me leave you with this. Do you think you could come up with something better than what Wizards of the Coast wrote for Paladin? Do you think you could make a better justification of where their powers come from? I think you could. I think if you put enough imagination or passion into it, you can truly make something that is totally awesome. Also, I'm just saying, we wouldn't have this problem if we just had a magic swordsman that was actually good and not tied to a god. If we had a magus or spellblade, we wouldn't have this problem.